Welcome to the Humanergy Leadership Podcast, where we tackle your toughest leadership challenges and share practical tools to help you lead with impact. My name's David Wheatley. You're at Humanergy's First Friday session. We host these the first Friday of every month, apart from a couple of months in the summer, and they're always free. And feel free to invite anybody you feel would get some value from doing this kind of work with us. My colleague Jim Marshall is going to be doing our presentation today. Today's topic is, and Jim was saying this, it sounds a little academic, the elements of human transformation. We're all going to be wowed by the depth of it, and it's going to be a lot more simple than it sounds in its introduction.
Thank you, David. Appreciate that. The title of today's topic is Elements of Human Transformation. And as David kind of alluded to, it sounds a little academic, but this is something I can say I've spent a lifetime in the world of training, development, learning, thinking about how when people grow and when they transform, what happens and how does that come to be? What works and what doesn't work? And I put this up here, this slide, love, hate, succeeds, fails, because I want to say, by and large, people love to learn and people love to grow. And when we come across something that we don't know how to do, there's, I think in most or many circumstances, there's a natural curiosity. How can I learn this? And so we often seek out training. And I will say that's not always true. I've had mandatory training that I didn't want to go to, or I've had training that I felt like was not effective or not a good use of my time or that kind of a thing. But if you just say, what's the want? People want to learn and to grow. And then what's the problem? What gets in the way? The problem is that training doesn't always work. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Have you ever had to re-explain something to someone that you sat down, you'd spent the time with them, and then sooner rather than later, the next day they show up and they say, well, can you show me how to do that again? I can remember an IT team where I was working, they implemented Salesforce as a customer relationship management software. And those folks had the patience of saints. They held training after training after training, and then they were on-call support, re-explaining how to generate a lead or how to run a report or all the different things. And I remember thinking about that project in that organization and asking the question, well, why are we retraining people over and over and over again? What's going wrong? So I have another story, one of the most vivid examples that probably brings me here today. I was doing a Humanergy high performance leadership program. And what that means is we were working with a group of leaders. And when we went on site once a month, we coached individually about 8 to 10 different leaders. And then we spent a half day doing some group coaching leadership training. So month one, we do leadership training and we do it on this tool in Humanergy's arsenal called the delegation tool. And I love this tool. I loved it when I first encountered it, and I have used it myself over and over again. So month one, we spend 4 hours in a room. We go over delegation tool. Fast forward to month two. I come back a month later. I sit down with this one leader, and I'll just call this leader Fred. Fred's talking about hiring a new employee. And he's talking about, well, how do I launch them? How do I set them up for success? How do I make sure they have a good experience and, they get off on the right foot? I said, hey, Fred, have you thought about using the delegation tool? And the most disappointing answer ever came next. He said, what delegation tool? And so I tried to keep my poker face instead of burst out in tears, because I thought, how could we have spent 4 hours with you? And now you're saying, what delegation tool? So rather than any of that, I pull up a document, we run through this tool, these 6 steps, and we have a good conversation. Now, what I remember, and this is a long time ago, is it wasn't like he was wildly enthusiastic. He just was kind of like nodding his head. Oh, this is good. This will help me. I'll use this next week when so-and-so starts in this new job role. Fast forward to the 3rd month. I'm walking into his office to sit down for our one-on-one. First words out of his mouth, hey, that delegation tool, that thing is sweet. I'm using it everywhere. I use it at home with my kids. I'm using it when I send an email to my boss because I need something, or to my colleagues. I'm just using it all over the place. I really love that thing. And what it set up for me was, one, that was when sometimes I introduce this story as the time when I fell out of love with my own voice. Because I realized as a trainer, I can go and I can do my very best to explain something, to give away the content or the knowledge that someone needs. And that isn't sufficient to create the kind of learning or transformation that I really want. And what it did is it set me on the path of thinking about, well, what is it that's there? So with that as an opening and a preamble to set up, what is it? What do we really need? I've got two tools that I want to leave you with today that have been really helpful to me, thinking about what do I need when I'm trying to go from one level of ability to another, and what do I need when I'm working with colleagues or clients and we're writing a proposal and we're designing a project. We don't want to miss these elements of human transformation. The first tool is called the Four Stages of Competence. And you can see this has been around since 1960. Some academics came up with it. What it basically says is at any point when I'm going to go from not knowing to knowing something, I start at unconscious incompetence. Now, it sounds a little hard to compute, but what it means is I don't know that I'm not very good at something. I move to stage 2, conscious incompetence. Now I know or I'm aware that I'm not very good at the thing. Usually there's an aha moment. There's a piece of feedback. There's an experience that leads to the light bulb moment. From stage 2, when I'm at conscious competence or conscious incompetence, I move to conscious competence. I try to begin to do the thing very consciously and practice doing the best practice, if you will. So now I am aware and I'm dialed in on trying to do this thing. If I stay at stage 3 and I do it over and over again, then I have a chance to eventually move to stage 4, unconscious competence, or, I don't need to think about doing the best practice. And you can see the words on the slide there, mastery or second nature, or in other words, habit. Habit is another good word to add into our conversation today, because I like to say with my clients these days, the goal of training is habit. It's not just that you learn something and you try a new thing one time. It's that you get to the point where you automatically do this thing that we're setting out to learn today every time you have an opportunity. It's like Fred. You recognize every opportunity to use the delegation tool and you put it into practice automatically. So that's one tool. The second tool we call the growth chain. Now this is adapted from PDI, and they called it a pipeline, but I like the metaphor of the chain. You need every link in the chain in order to create transformation in someone's life. And so it starts out on the left there at aha. Is someone aware that they need to grow? Do they have the insight that they're not very good at something? You can recognize how that relates to stage 1 and 2 of the 4 stages of competence. Then there's this question of motivation. And I appreciate someone in the early chat when we asked, when training works, what makes it work? And someone right away said it's motivation, it's desire, it's a person wanting to learn something. So there's a key ingredient to transformation. Then the middle stage of the growth chain is the know-how. Do they have the knowledge and skills? So if I'm aware I don't know how to change the oil of a car, and David does know how to change oil of a car, and I want to learn, and David spends an afternoon showing me how to change the oil in a car, that lines up all 3 of the first links of the chain. But that doesn't make me a master mechanic, right? So 4th link in the chain is repetition. Does a person repeatedly practice the skill or the knowledge that they acquired at the know-how link? And then the final stage is accountability. Do we have the structure or the support required? I think of this one as preventing me from slipping back to old habits, creating a way that it's easier to do the best practice. It's easier to do the unconscious competence than it is to do the thing that previously I didn't. So you put all these things together and you start to see what happens when transformation, when training works. You've got all of these elements there. And I want to talk a little bit about common missteps. The ones that I've experienced in a lifetime of being in learning and development is, number one, we give away the know-how, but we really don't develop the aha or the want to. And I think fundamentally that was what went wrong with Fred. Somehow we missed the light bulb moment. Fred was in that training for a half day in month one. He learned the delegation tool. He heard all about it. He practiced it a couple of times on examples because we tend to try to be experiential in the training that we do. And the light bulb just didn't go on, such that month two, he's like, well, what delegation tool? What are you talking about? And something happened in month two that led to, all of he got into, true transformation. The misstep number two, we let someone or ourselves stop at the know-how, and we don't go on to developing repetition and accountability. So yeah, I got the training, but 6 months later, the materials are in a file folder in my cabinet, and I haven't looked at them and I haven't thought about it. And, in my experience, there's plenty of leaders who say, I sometimes think of it as they chuck training at a problem. We have this issue in our organization. Well, let's train our people. And if you're keeping in mind the 4 stages of competence or the growth chain, then just working in the know-how link of the chain is not enough to create true impact or true transformation in our organizations. The last thing I want to do is bring together a number of tools in the Humanergy arsenal. My colleague Quay last month, she was talking about FACET and how when we're holding people accountable, we need to use FACET. And so how do all these come together? I put them together on the growth chain. In other words, I started unconscious incompetence, and then I have an aha moment. I become aware that I'm not very good at something. So the aha, then it may or may not lead to the want to, but all the way up into the know-how or the learning event, the learning experience, that's when I'm aware that I don't know. I get the know-how, and now I know what I need to do, and I'm in that stage 3, conscious competence. And I begin to repeatedly practice. And my argument would be that's where FACET is involved. I bring focus. I find people who are going to help me learn and grow, give me feedback. The C and the E and the T of the FACET tool to create a habit. And then as I do that more and more, I get to the stage of unconscious competence. It's coming naturally to me. And at that point, I want to think about accountability in terms of, do I have KPIs and metrics? Do I have team meetings where we're asking repeatedly about how people are using this tool, or insights or opportunities to learn? I hope that you will find that this is a helpful thing as you think about sculpting your own life, going from one level of ability to another, or as you think about working with others who are around you, whether it's your children or whether it's your direct reports, or if you have the opportunity to design some type of learning or training program in your organization.
That was the Humanergy Leadership Podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe, and visit humanergy.com for many more resources.